Hello and welcome to this edition of News Today. Without delay, let's have a look at the headlines first. Government of India suspends Indus Water Treaty. UNODC report highlights expansion of organized crime groups beyond East and Southeast Asia. Prime Minister concluded his state visit of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. SVAMITVA scheme completes 5 years. 84% of the world's coral reefs impacted in the 4th Global Coral Bleaching event. In a significant diplomatic and strategic move, the government of India has suspended the Indus Water Treaty with Pakistan. This decision follows the recent terror attack in Pahalgam and was taken by the Cabinet Committee on Security. The suspension would remain in effect until Pakistan credibly and irrevocably ends its support for cross-border terrorism. To understand the magnitude of this decision, let's take a closer look at the Indus Water Treaty itself. Signed in 1960 by then Prime Minister Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru and Pakistan President Muhammad Ayub Khan, the treaty was brokered by the World Bank and governs the distribution and usage of waters from the Indus River system. Under the treaty, India has unrestricted use of the eastern rivers, Ravi, Beas and Satluj, while Pakistan was allocated the western rivers, Indus, Jhelum and Chenab. India has allowed non-consumptive use of the western rivers, including for navigation, floating of timber or other property, flood protection or flood control, fishing or fish culture. Adding to its structure, the treaty also mandates a monthly exchange of data with respect to the flow in and utilization of waters by each party. Implementation mechanism consists of the creation of a permanent Indus Commission, with a commissioner from each country in order to maintain a channel for communication and to try to resolve questions about implementation of the treaty. For settlement of differences and disputes, the treaty outlines a 3-tier resolution mechanism, beginning with the permanent Indus Commission, then moving to a neutral expert, and if unresolved, escalating to a court of arbitration for handling distinct issues. Importantly, the treaty includes a clause that allows modification. Provisions of the treaty may be modified by a duly ratified treaty concluded for that purpose between the two governments. Now, turning to the Cabinet Committee on Security, the body behind the suspension, its responsibilities include matters of national defense, law and order, internal security, and foreign affairs having internal or external security implications, and reviewing the manpower requirements relating to national security, among others. The committee is chaired by the Prime Minister and includes the Ministers of Defense, Home Affairs, Finance and External Affairs. With this bold step, India signals a toughened stance on cross-border terrorism and escalates pressure through diplomatic and strategic channels.
A significant new report by the United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime has revealed worrying trends in the world of transnational organized crime. The focus of this report is primarily on East and Southeast Asia, but what's even more concerning is how these criminal networks are now expanding far beyond their original territories. Let's begin with what is changing in Southeast Asia. The region has seen a shift in organized criminal activity, particularly in drug production. For example, Myanmar has become a hub for synthetic drug production, especially methamphetamine. But the impact doesn't end there. Now, as enforcement agencies in East and Southeast Asia crack down harder, these organized cybercrime groups are moving their operations outward. The report highlights their geographical expansion, reaching into Africa, South Asia including India, the Middle East, Pacific Islands, Europe, North America, and even South America. In fact, one striking example is from March 2025, when a large number of Indian nationals were repatriated after being found in scam centers in Mayawadi, Myanmar. This only reinforces the idea that no region is immune from these growing criminal networks. And these networks are adapting quickly. One key trend identified in this report is the rise of new illicit online marketplaces. A case in point is Hui On Guarantee, also known as Hawang, a Telegram-based platform in Southeast Asia, now one of the world's largest illicit online marketplaces. Now, how are these crimes being committed and who is behind them? Transnational organized criminal groups or OCGs are not just involved in traditional crimes anymore. Many are now deeply engaged in cybercrime. They are exploiting digital technologies to tap into new online criminal markets, including internet gambling. But it doesn't stop there. These groups are becoming increasingly professional and technologically sophisticated. We are talking about the use of malware, deepfake technology, and AI-driven services to conduct their operations. So, what is the way forward? The UNODC suggests several steps. These include raising political awareness and willpower, strengthening regulatory frameworks, enhancing the operational capacities of law enforcement agencies, and advancing regional cooperation on enforcement actions. This brings us to a related development closer to home. Niti Aayog recently published an article titled Digital Arrest, the Modern-Day Cyber Scam. So, what exactly is a digital arrest? It is a cybercrime tactic that uses fear and intimidation to extort money. Fraudsters impersonate law enforcement officials and threaten victims with arrest, freezing of bank accounts, or cancellation of passports, all to coerce payments in the form of fines or security deposits. The goal is simple: trick the victim into paying up to avoid imaginary legal consequences. But why do people fall for it? There are several reasons. 1. It plays on human psychology, using fear, excitement, or urgency to manipulate people. 2. Weak cybersecurity practices like poor password hygiene make it easier for fraudsters to strike. 3. The techniques used in these scams evolve rapidly, always staying a step ahead of security systems. And 4. The rise of digital payments has introduced new financial fraud risks, from fake UPI requests to misleading QR codes. Add to that the thriving dark web economy where stolen data is freely traded, and the picture becomes even more troubling. Lastly, the report emphasizes one critical gap: the lack of strong cyber laws and consistent enforcement, which continues to give these criminals a dangerous upper hand.
Moving on, Prime Minister has successfully concluded his state visit to the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, marking yet another milestone in the growing India-Saudi Arabia partnership. A major highlight of the visit was the second leaders' meeting of the India-Saudi Arabia Strategic Partnership Council, co-chaired by the Prime Minister himself. Now, let's talk about the key outcomes of this important meeting. The Strategic Partnership Council, or SPC, has now been expanded. 2 new ministerial committees have been added, one dedicated to defense cooperation and another focusing on tourism and cultural cooperation. Previously, the SPC had 2 ministerial committees, one dealing with political, consular and security cooperation, and the other with economy, energy, investment and technology. Moving forward, a significant development came from the Joint High-Level Task Force on Investment, which was set up in 2024. It has agreed to collaborate on establishing 2 refineries in India. And that's not all. Several memoranda of understanding were signed as well. These include MOUs for cooperation in space activities for peaceful purposes, health and anti-doping education and prevention. In addition, both sides have agreed to expedite negotiations on 2 crucial fronts: the India-GCC Free Trade Agreement and the Bilateral Investment Treaty. Now, stepping into the broader picture of India-Saudi Arabia relations, let's begin with economic cooperation. India is currently Saudi Arabia's second largest trading partner, while Saudi Arabia stands as India's 5th largest. In the financial year 2023-24, bilateral trade reached a substantial $42.98 billion. Saudi investment in India has touched approximately $10 billion. Both countries are also strategic partners in the India-Middle East-Europe Corridor Initiative. On the energy front, Saudi Arabia is India's 3rd largest supplier of crude oil and LPG during FY 2023-24. And when we speak of people-to-people ties, the Indian diaspora in Saudi Arabia is around 2.7 million strong, forming a vital bridge between the 2 nations. Finally, let's turn to defense and security. The partnership continues to strengthen with joint exercises like Sada Tanseek and Al-Mahad Al-Hindi, along with cooperation in defense manufacturing. That wraps up the key takeaways from the Prime Minister's impactful visit to Saudi Arabia, an engagement that reflects the depth and dynamism of India-Saudi Arabia ties.
A significant milestone in India's rural development journey. 5 years of the SVAMITVA scheme has been marked. Launched by the Prime Minister on National Panchayati Raj Day, April 24, 2020, the SVAMITVA scheme has aimed to transform rural India through innovative mapping and property rights. So, what exactly is SVAMITVA? It stands for Survey of Villages and Mapping with Improvised Technology in Village Areas. It is a central sector scheme under the Union Ministry of Panchayati Raj, designed with a clear objective: to drive the economic transformation of rural India by providing property owners in village abadi areas with a legally recognized record of rights. Now, why is this important? Because it brings financial stability to citizens in rural India. By granting them legal documentation, it enables them to use their property as a financial asset for taking loans and accessing various financial benefits. Let's now talk about the key features of the scheme. It starts with the issuance of property cards to residents of abadi areas, giving them legal ownership. It also plays a vital role in dispute resolution, helping reduce land conflicts through accurate mapping. The scheme further boosts digital governance, introducing transparent, tech-enabled rural land management. And importantly, it supports village planning, using GIS data to aid Gram Panchayat development plans. Now let's move to the achievements. Drone surveys have been completed in 3.20 lakh villages covering over 68,122 square kilometers. And more than 2.42 crore property cards have been issued across 1.61 lakh villages. And here's a proud achievement. Full coverage has already been achieved in several regions. These include Lakshadweep, Ladakh, NCT of Delhi, Andhra Pradesh, Madhya Pradesh, Uttar Pradesh, and Chhattisgarh. And what powers the implementation of such an ambitious scheme? Let's look at the core components of SVAMITVA. First, there's the CORS network. That's continuous operating reference stations which ensure accurate georeferencing and mapping. Second, drone surveys, the backbone of the project, enabling high-resolution mapping of abadi areas using drone technology. Third, IEC activities, which stand for Information, Education and Communication, vital for spreading awareness among the rural population. Fourth, the Gram Manchitra app, which acts as a spatial planning tool for the Gram Panchayat Development Plan or GPDP. Fifth, the monitoring system, offering real-time progress tracking and implementation dashboards. And sixth, project management, which includes national and state-level project management units or PMUs that drive the scheme forward on the ground. In just 5 years, SVAMITVA has laid the foundation for stronger, more empowered and economically independent rural communities through clarity, technology and trust.
Moving ahead, a grave environmental crisis is unfolding beneath the ocean surface. Scientists have now confirmed that the world is experiencing the 4th global coral bleaching event, which is also the most intense and widespread ever recorded. Beginning in early 2023, this event has continued through March 2025, affecting an alarming 84% of the world's coral reefs. To put this in perspective, the first bleaching event in 1998 impacted only 21% of reefs. The second in 2010 reached 37%, and the third between 2014 and 2017 affected 68%. The current event, therefore, marks a sharp and concerning escalation. Let's understand what coral bleaching is and why it's so significant. Corals, which are invertebrate animals, live in colonies made up of polyps, each formed through budding, where an original polyp grows copies of itself. These corals are classified as hard corals or reef-building corals or soft corals. Hard corals build massive reef structures by secreting calcium carbonate. Crucially, corals live in a symbiotic relationship with algae called zooxanthellae. These algae provide corals with nutrients through photosynthesis and also give them their vibrant colors. However, under environmental stress, especially due to rising ocean temperatures, corals expel the zooxanthellae, resulting in coral bleaching. Once bleached, corals are not only white but also deprived of their primary food source. If these stressful conditions persist, it can lead to mass coral death. The importance of coral reefs cannot be overstated. They are biodiversity hotspots, supporting nearly 25% of all marine species. Additionally, coral reefs help with coastal protection by acting as natural breakwaters, protecting coastlines from storms, erosion, and flooding. Economically, their global value is estimated at $10 trillion, owing to their roles in tourism, fisheries, and coastal protection. In response to these mounting threats, several coral conservation technologies have been developed. Among them is bio-rock technology, which uses low-voltage electrical currents on submerged metal frames to stimulate calcium carbonate deposition, aiding coral growth. Then there are 3D printed reef structures designed to mimic the complexity of natural reefs, thereby providing essential habitat for marine life and a foundation for coral growth. Lastly, coral cryopreservation involves cryobranching coral larvae and genetic material, which helps preserve coral biodiversity for future restoration efforts. As the oceans continue to warm and coral reefs face unprecedented stress, the global urgency to act through both mitigation and innovation has never been greater. In today's Place in News, we turn our focus to Costa Rica with its capital San Jose. In Central America, Costa Rica's Poás volcano has erupted, drawing global attention. Now, let's look at some key facts. Costa Rica lies in Central America and is bordered by Nicaragua to the north and Panama to the southeast, the Caribbean Sea on the east, and the Pacific Ocean on the west. Geographically, the country is known for its dramatic landscapes, featuring prominent mountain ranges like the Cordillera Volcánea and the Cordillera de Talamanca, the latter a UNESCO World Heritage Site along the border between Panama and Costa Rica. Besides Poás, the nation is home to other significant volcanoes including Irazu and Arenal, making it one of the most volcanically active regions in the world.
As we conclude today's main news, let's have a look at some quick updates. Income Tax Department has recently notified list of luxury items on which taxpayers will have to pay 1% tax collected at source. Tax collected at source is a tax payable by a seller which he collects from the buyer at the time of sale of goods. Union Finance Minister stated that India aims to double the share of manufacturing in GDP with the help of sunrise sectors. Sunrise industry is an inherent concept that shows hope of a rapid boom for a developing sector or market in its infancy stage. Using multi-country computable general equilibrium model or IMF-ENV, IMF has examined how AI-driven data center growth affects electricity consumption, electricity prices, and carbon emissions. IMF-ENV is a global dynamic computable general equilibrium model developed by the IMF's research department. Researchers at the Institute of Advanced Study in Science and Technology in Guwahati have developed a new optical sensing platform for detecting cholesterol could indicate the probability of diseases. Platform can sense cholesterol in trace amounts, even below the preferred range. It can be an efficient tool for routine monitoring of cholesterol levels in the human body. NASA is developing first ever space-based quantum sensor for measuring gravity. Subtle changes in gravity are measured using gravity gradiometers. Gravity gradiometers track how fast an object in one location falls compared to an object falling just a short distance away. For the first time, quantum messages have been successfully transmitted over 254 kilometers in Germany using existing commercial telecommunication infrastructure. The communication was enabled through optical fiber cables without the need for cryogenic cooling. China and Russia are planning to build a nuclear power plant on the moon to power their joint International Lunar Research Station. The plan also aims to create the 555 project, inviting 50 countries, 500 international scientific research institutions, and 5,000 overseas researchers to join the ILRS. 100 years ago, Travancore government gave full effect to the agreement of Vaikom Satyagraha. Vaikom Satyagraha took place in Vaikom village, Kottayam district, Kerala in 1924-25. Vaikom Satyagraha focused on elimination of untouchability and freedom of movement in public spaces.
Before we sign off, let's challenge your understanding in today's installment of Test Your Learning. Thank you for joining us. We hope you found this episode of News Today engaging. For the solutions to the quiz and to access the PDF version of News Today, remember to visit the provided links in the description.